I'm Kate Chappell, and I'm here with USU Extension and Food Sense to do some demonstrations. This one is all about knives. The most common knife you'll encounter is a French knife or a chef's knife. There is one way to hold it. This is not the right way. This is not the right way, unless you're murdering people like Freddy. To hold it correctly, you want to pinch between your finger and thumb here, then these three fingers wrap around the blade. You want to rock it on the curve of the blade. Then to cut something, set it on your board, cut down. You want to use a rocking motion to cut, but you're still moving the knife backwards and forwards. And this does take practice. This is not something anyone's born knowing. The other knife you'll see a lot of is a smaller knife called a paring knife. Typically it's used for trimming the ends of vegetables, and you'll hold it a little bit differently. You don't want to use the same technique because you'll cut the end of your finger off. And you can trim the ends off of vegetables and do, minor touch-up things with a paring knife. You want to store them in a block like this or in a drawer, but if they're in a drawer, they do need a case on them because you don't want your blades, you don't want your blades banging into each other and making your knives dull. So the correct way to slice around vegetables, or to make them not round, because you don't want it rolling away and you don't want it rolling so you get your thumb instead. So once you make it not round, hold your knife again like you're supposed to. Your fingers need to be curled kind of into a claw, and you want the blade of the knife resting against the flat part of your finger. And then using the same rocking motion, the whole blade, you slice. Each time you move your fingers back, that determines how wide of a slice you're going to make. Consistency is key when slicing things because they will cook all at the same time if they're all the same size. So if you have little carrots and big carrots, this one will be done a lot sooner than this one. So we want to maintain all the same size when we're slicing. Other vegetables you can chop instead of slice. So when you want a more rough shape, put this hand on top of the knife, use that same rocking motion, follow the shape of the blade, and you can chop it into a much more rough shape. It's not as uniform, but depending on what you're doing, this might be what you want. When you're done, you scrape it into a pile, put it in your dish, move to the next ingredient. Onions are a little bit tricky because they have so many layers and they also have a peel. So I get asked this all the time, and I'm sure you're wondering, is there any way to not cry when you're cutting an onion? And the answer is no. There's a lot of oil here near the roots that will release into the air as you cut your onion. So the best way to go about it to avoid crying is to have a sharp knife and to cut fast, because wearing ski goggles doesn't work, cutting underwater isn't really functional for getting good, delicious onions. You want to cut it in half, remove the paper, I like to leave the root intact. You can see just a little bit here. That will hold your layers together. You won't be chasing them all over the cutting board. This doesn't taste good, we'll discard that. Then you want to follow the lines of the onion with your knife. And you don't want to cut all the way through to the end. You leave this here as an anchor. And you turn it sideways. A lot of people cut one slice here. I don't think that's necessary because the layers are small enough. So as you cut, then you end up with nice little diced onions, easy for sauteing, easy for putting into fillings. A lot of people worry when they find bell peppers in their recipe, but they don't know how to cut them. The easiest way I found is to slice off the top, remove the seeds in one bunch, and remove this little pithy, spongy part. It doesn't taste very good, it's usually bitter. And then once again, cut it in half so it's not round. For a julienne, which are the little sticks you see in stir fries and salads and things like that, same thing, you're using the knife against the flat edge of your finger, holding the pepper securely, and rocking that knife back and forth using as much of the blade as you can. If you notice a lot this flavor here, you can cut it out, but you don't want to discard the whole strip because that's a lot of pepper. That's, you know, edible. Sometimes in a recipe you'll encounter instructions like small dice or medium dice, and there are measurements for those. Once again, consistency is the key. So take your round potato, make it flat. If you want a medium dice, you're going to cut a big plank like this. Then you're going to cut it into sticks that are the same width as your potato is high. If you want to measure, you can use your extra potato. Then you know they're all the same height, the same width. You can turn your potato sideways, and there you have a medium dice. So if you have medium dice, you'll have all the potatoes cut the same size. Approximately, they'll cook about the same time. Same thing is true for small dice. You just cut a smaller plank. If you have to cut a lot of potatoes, you can stack them into layers and then cut your sticks. Then turn it sideways again, cut your cubes, and you have a small dice. You can go even smaller. I wouldn't recommend it with a potato, but other vegetables for salads and things. And there are your dices. When you're cutting fresh herbs, they're almost all the same. You want to remove the leaves from the stem. The stems are useful for things like stocks and soups for adding flavor when you don't want to add the leaves until the end. So if you have a recipe that calls for parsley or cilantro or rosemary, it's all the same procedure. Remove the delicious green leaves, save the stems for use elsewhere. When you're mincing or chopping parsley, you kind of want to ball it up. Same knife procedure, hold your knife the same way, knuckles against the edge of the blade, and you just want to use that rocking motion and get good clean cuts through your leaves. Gather them all up again, turn them, and go again. The second time, sometimes your little pile falls down. You can put your hand up here like a chopping motion, but you're still rocking that knife, you're still using that motion to get good small bits, because you don't want to have, you know, somebody over for dinner and they get a big leaf of parsley stuck in their teeth. So you want to make sure you chop it up nice and small. It'll get really fragrant, which is one of the things that makes cooking fun. So there you have minced herbs. It works with pretty much every herb, all the leafy herbs for sure. Chives, rosemary, parsley, cilantro, oregano for pizza sauce and stew. So there you go.